Okay. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to our December Tamales meeting. My name is Anna Gonzalez, and I'm here with Shannon, Paige, and Nico Nelson,
Hold on.
the Texas Technology Access Program. And we're glad you could join us today to end the year. Before we get started, a quick housekeeping note. If you haven't already completed the form we sent out about like the new meeting time and stuff, we'll show a QR code towards the end so you can fill out. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. So here's a reminder of the mission behind Somalis. So our um, Texas Assistive Technology Makers Alliance. So the goal is to build a network of makers who support and include people with disabilities by designing unique tools and solutions that promote independence. So we love saying Mission Impossible because every month we see creative ideas, problem solving, and then the real impact happening across like the state and throughout. So for this slide, AT is everywhere. So one thing we always like to emphasize is that assistive technology is truly everywhere. So it looks different for every user. Um, Hence the bottom asterisk saying it's unique to each user. And so it can support, sensory needs, access, vision, hearing, communication, organization, and the list goes on and on. So whether you're a professional, a family member, a person with like lived experience or like a maker, you play a big role in creating solutions that matter. So kind of like the quote on the side says, nothing about us without us. Now let's take a look at what we've planned for today. Today's agenda. Let's see. Okay, there we go. So here's what's going to be covered in today's meeting. We're going to do new connections, and then we'll touch on new resources that we found and do a little tech intel. We'll share some like failures, because I think last time someone mentioned, hey, this kind of happened, but I can go into depth later on. Well, this is a time to do that. And then also a Tech Fest live update. And then if you have anything you'd like to share during like the tech intel or the shared failures portion, just feel free to like jump in, or you can even just drop it in the chat. That's fine too. So the next thing is what I mentioned at the beginning. So the meeting time and date survey. So this is a QR code for the new meeting time survey. So it just takes a few minutes and it really helps us with like our planning the meeting times that work best for everyone that's joining us. So you're welcome to scan it now or you can do so at the end of the meeting. And then Nico also put that in the chat to make it a little bit easier. Um, and a little thing about our conference. So there's an update. I think we might have mentioned it last time, but for the next year, we already have a set date, which is October 28th and 29th. So you can go ahead and mark your calendar and plan to come visit us in Austin. We're officially 10 months out, which means, we're already thinking ahead about what makerspace we should be doing for next year. We'd love to hear like any suggestions that y'all might have, whether it's like a hands-on build, like a challenge activity, a showcase, or something like new. So feel free to like share those ideas as well. And then we have any new members. So if you're new, we'd love for you to introduce yourself by sharing, what part of Texas you're from. How did you hear about us? Your favorite maker tool currently, and what maker goal that you have. So feel free to unmute, or you can even share in the chat, like whatever works best for you. Do you want?
Hello.
Hello?
Hi. I'm Dylan, and I found out about y'all from the Dallas Make Expo. Yeah, yeah.
Hi, Dylan.
And 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 I think I I had a spinal cord injury about 18 months ago, as well as a brachial plexus injury, meaning my right arm is paralyzed. So I've been making my own adaptive uh, helping instruments ever since. So I think this is a good fit for me to be a part of this community. And I think my favorite tool right now is probably my Prusa printer. It's my workhorse and always has been. Thank you.
Welcome aboard. We're glad to have you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you for being here. And I'm not sure if we spoke, but yeah, thank you for joining us today and hopefully for like the next year too. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead. I think that's our only new member for right now.
Ooh, and now yeah, I think that's all. Everyone else, I think, has been here before. And
Okay.
we love that especially for the month of December. We're thrilled to have anyone here. And so this is fantastic. One of the things we always like to do is share resources as a part of our meeting. And so I'm always like on my free time searching the internet. I'm searching Facebook. I'm searching LinkedIn and talking to other people. And then I was just at ASHA. Um, so one of the new resources on the Padlet we added is this Tom, and it's just another maker group like Makers Making Change. We always want to share these, and you always get the donations. But if you look here, what I always like everyone to look at is each of these groups has projects. So I want to open the Padlet first, and you can see how I've added these just because I'd like you to see the layout. Oop, taking the long way. I didn't have it open, so thanks for being patient. So here is our tamales Padlet. You can see it has a wealth of information, and we keep adding more, and we try to organize it a little bit more. So some of the things, because my computer's running slow, it looks like it's not there, but it is. So we've added a couple new shared sites. One is MIT, and then another one in Pittsburgh with some design ideas. And these are always, especially if we're working with individuals, if you've seen one individual, you've seen one individual. So we want to have robust tools available. If you scoot over, then some other things that we're always adding are ideas. I'm not making you dizzy. So we're always adding research. So I've added a couple more research articles, which I will talk to, and they always drop to the bottom. I guess I should put them on the top, but I've already started this way. And so there's a couple like accessible maker spaces, some gate monitoring, some interesting concepts. And then we also, as we start getting ideas, we try to add those files and plans. So these are challenges. These are the files and plans. So on the bottom of the files and plans, that's where you'll see some of the new ideas. Like this whippersnapper's an idea, some makey information, this neural maker, and then the adaptive cars and wheelchairs. I think that's things we had from before. So you always want to be staying up to date with this because we're always adding more to it, and it's such a robust resource. So I'm going to go to this Tom, and if you look at the projects, then they typically show you this is where they've got some 3D printed resources, but they've also got like here's an adapted finger loom, and we talk a lot about recreation. That could be even something that you could use with someone who's blind for a knitting style bin. Um, Cards, we've seen a lot of these cards, and this was an interesting toothbrush holder. So that is one site that we have. I'm going to come back to the PowerPoint. And then the other one was this MIT assisted technology club, which I added to the other state makers. And once again, you go to their projects. And theirs is a little harder to find, but you have to dig in a little bit. And then they've got the different showcases. Oops, and I went back. But if you go to the actual like Spring 25, well, I did see pictures. Oh, here you go. Final projects and showcases. Um, and then they ended up sharing some of the pictures at the bottom. And theirs is a little harder to navigate. As you can see, I'm having a hard time and I'm not finding the actual showcases, but they were there and they might be embedded in the actual, oh, here they are. There. Now they've got some really high tech information because they're working, here's their projects. So it took a little bit to navigate, but then you can go through and you can actually look at some of the things that they're inventing. And look at this, an assisted vehicle finder for the iPhone for visually impaired. Look at that, a cane stabilizer, some different things, robot feeding devices. So they're going to be more of your high-end collegiate level. But I still think these are great ideas that anyone can experiment with because the robotics are becoming so much more user-friendly in this day and age. So let me get out of there. And then this was one more from Tom, and it's like a little adapted typing device. Woohoo! And then our own CNS lab we've got here. Everybody, I've talked about Patrick and the CNS lab from the University of Texas. And so he just shared with me one of the new things that he has completed. So here's a little, it's basically a switch interface that he made with the Makey Makey. So once again, we're looking at these interfaces that are under $20 and all of the patterns for his are going to be on the Instructables. But the cool thing is in sending me to Instructables, because that's where Patrick keeps a lot of his files, I found a whole bunch of new files. So if you come here once again to project, which is how they're labeled, and then if you type assistive technology, you can see all of the different AT devices and tools there. And this is why I picked this talking joystick, but you can see how robust all of the resources are. And especially if we're trying to make and simplify, don't ever reinvent the wheel. You always want to use what's already there. And then we'll move forward. The other thing I always like, and especially as we're starting to ask for more funding and we're working with more programs, schools, collegiate, is when you're writing grants, you want to make sure you've got the research behind it. So one of the things we've added in the Tamales app is actual research articles. And that's going to help anyone who's trying to get funding for a program because many times they want some of that research. So you'll see right here somewhere, right here under research, this just keeps growing and specifically for today's, I really kind of included those articles that talked about really including individuals with disabilities so that you're including, you're using that trifecta where you've got your therapist, your maker, and then that individual who's actually using the device. And in Dylan's case, you have the disability and you're making, which makes it even more powerful because you're going to make it fit, you're going to make it more comfortable, and we've got a lot of research to show that. So that's why this research becomes such an important aspect of our tamales push. So any comments or questions? So the articles that we have today are Fostering Inclusion, a regional initiative uniting communities to co-design assistive technologies. And then the other one is Barriers and Benefits, the path to accept accessible makerspaces. Because if we got to practice what we preach. So any comments so far from anyone? Will, it's good to see you again with your couch.
It's the best backdrop I can have. Who knows what y'all are hiding behind y'all's virtual things. I'm proud that I'm working from home.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to point out I did go to Texas Workforce down in Corpus Christi last week. I was there for 4 days, and I had your boards down there, and got some good comments on it. So
So the
we're
boards have
talking.
made their way to Corpus Christi. Heck yes.
Correct. Yep, there you go.
Perfect.
I'll send you a
And
picture.
actually, it's been 2 years since I joined Tamales Group, I guess, is when I approached y'all at the the Dallas
Dallas.
Expo. So it's hard to believe it's already been 2 years and y'all haven't kicked me out. So heck yes.
We're growing strong. I had several people contact me today and said they wouldn't be able to make it, but anyways, you're always here, so we appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, moving forward. So those are the articles. Make sure you take the time, and then you'll see we've also got these are all open source articles that I post in the Padlet, but there are sometimes some that I can't post online, and I put those in box, and I ask you to read them and just keep them to yourself, but not share them. All right, and I'm going to turn it over to Nico.
Yeah. So, just some fun products we found over the last month or so is this robotic hand, which is essentially it's a toolkit that you assemble this hand and then you program it to pick up the ball. It's a pretty cool little kit that you can just get for your kiddos. What's the price point on it, Shannon?
Um, it's meant because they're doing a lot more of that machine learning. And so this is teaching individuals how to use machine learning with the actual hand because that's what they're starting to do with the robots. It's really fascinating. So instead of trying to program it, you actually give the robots a task and they'll start out with like I listened to a podcast and he talked about how they were at the Google lab and they had 100 of these little bots and the whole point of these bots were to take a hand and pick up a tray or pick up a ball and they started with children's toys. And he was like, it took like 4 months before any one of these little bots was successful. But once that bot was successful, then it sent the code to all of them. And the next thing you know, they were all picking up the ball. And then it's that whole machine learning. It's really an amazing thing that it's doing. And he said the scary part is because it's all machine learning, sometimes the coders don't even know how the machines figured it out. They can't even they're celebrating because it's successful and they can tell you their part of the process, but they can't tell you how the machine actually learned. So it so then they have to actually go back and ask the device, the AI, how it learned. And so then it becomes it's just a new way that we're going to start developing tools. But this is a way for kids, I think, to start experiencing that. And so let me see what it's a high price point.
I did see a high, yeah, it's $500 to start
Well,
out.
that's actually fairly reasonable for this type of gadget. I was thinking it was going to be higher. And then you can think about all of the experience that people are going to get. But then you think about when these kids who are playing with this today get into a collegiate classroom 5 years from now or 8 years from now, think of where this technology is going to go and the improvements we're going to have with individuals with disabilities who need this type of tool. So, all right, I'll turn it back to you, Nico. So $550.
So not terrible in terms of like the grand scheme of technologies that or maker tools out there. So the last two are just 3D printed wheelchairs for youngins, for little kiddos. The first one is a company that has been kind of like trying to make this more of a formalized service. And then the second one, you can actually download all the files for a small wheelchair to print it out. So yeah, this is the first one, and it gives you all the downloaded instructions. We aren't able to print one of these because I believe overall they said the cost was like maybe like $100 plus for the materials. But overall, like you get the files right here, and the maker guide. The aspect of liability I was wondering about, but again, these are just for youngins. These are for little kiddos. It is a more affordable option, and it gives them the possibility to explore their world for kiddos that do have mobility impairments. So really cool that Anna discovered. Yeah, also our printer bed's not big enough. That's a big limitation.
It actually doesn't take that long to print, depending on your printer. Like the Prusa prints pretty fast, and you would print these in different increments. Um, so I bet you if you've got a fast printer, I bet this could easily be printed in a week's time.
Yeah, and it's
I
like
did want to say, when I saw it, I did watch some videos. It's like Make Good. They're out of Louisiana. They're doing like an open source like file thing, and also if you go on their website, it shows like all the files like Nico was showing. And they were saying it's about like 200 in the grand scheme of things when you consider like the equipment needed and the filaments. And they were saying like the filaments they used about like 2.5 to give you like a good estimate of that. But essentially like all the things that you need for the wheelchair is there. And it's all 3D printed, including like the cushion aspect part of it and then the straps. So
Where this becomes a game changer is when you're talking, if you think about how fast a baby grows, and yet when you get funding for a wheelchair, it's supposed to last you for 5 years. So what they do is but think about how much a 1-year-old changes from a 6-year-old in that 5-year span. And so what this does is it gives littles an opportunity for mobility that you would use around your house before you actually use some of those insurance funds for a motorized wheelchair later once you've learned how to navigate a little bit. So it's almost like training wheels onto a bigger device. So it really opens a lot of doors when you consider it.
yeah,
Plus, if a
and then
child has practice with this, then you've got proof for the insurance company when you go to get funding that they've got the positioning, the mobility, and they've got the potential. So it could be a game changer.
yeah, and again, these kids are just starting out, so like giving them any access is pretty great.
Back to Nico.
Yeah. So we're doing tech and tail. What have you created? What are you working on? It'll segue into our next slide, which is talking about failures. So, anyone want to come off the mic or come on mic and kind of talk about what they've been doing in the last month or so?
Whether you're making, creating, thinking.
I guess
Problem
I
solving.
mentioned to y'all last time how I was doing a foam board, and I finally found a manufacturer here in North Carolina that can make the product for me. So I'm one step closer to creating a foam version of the Atento board that'll be 1 pound instead of the 3 pound plastic one currently.
Nice.
So that has been a labor of love, but it's all coming together. So that's what I've been working on.
Yeah, I had the bamboo one this weekend, and it is heavy, but there are times when somebody might need that heavy one because they don't want it to give way when they're using it to hold on to like a switch or something. So there is a need for both, honestly.
Exactly. Yes, ma'am. And honestly, just kind of a little fun fact for y'all with tariffs, the shipping cost on my product went up $1,300,
Ouch.
which is really, I wasn't expecting something like that. But of course, that's the world we're in right now. But it's going to be interesting to see. But thank goodness for good old country boys in North Carolina coming through. So we're good.
There's some good makers in North Carolina. It's so good.
Yes.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I just add this is Ken Hackworth that I've been regularly getting loaner AEC devices from the local AT Act organization here in the Denver area, and um, they they loaned me one of these. What is this? A talk pad, and um, it just has some. I'm looking at these for keyguard designs, and it has some special issues. I mean, a lot of the case designs have screen protectors with angles in them, and they're very close to the edge of the screen. And so I just started experimenting, adding new code to the designer. You won't be able to see this probably, but
I can see it.
to add a sloped edge to the underside of the key guard. And this has forced me to think about doing things like printing a key guard on its face rather than traditionally on its back. And what I learned by doing that is especially when you're printing on a smooth PEI sheet, that
Mhm.
top surface becomes really super smooth,
Right.
which you don't experience that kind of thing on the top surface of a print normally. even if it's flat surface, it's still all those little lines, unless you're doing, they call it ironing with the printer. But if you just turn that thing over, if you can, you just turn it over, boy, that top surface is just like glass. That's what I wanted to add here, really, was the whole idea of printing a key guard on its face rather than on its back.
And for some of our clients that have those sensory needs, that can be a game changer because it might make it more tactily pleasant for them versus an aversion to some of the rough part of it.
Right.
So that actually could be a game changer.
So that's it.
Well, you're always thinking about things, Ken, so thank you.
I'm always desperately trying to solve a problem. That's how I find these kind of things.
That's what Dr. Lee used to say. He's always the one that pushes problem solving to his students, which I think is why they do so well. Any other things for anyone to share? All right, I'm gonna move on one more, turn it back to Nico.
Yeah, so fun one. Kind of troubleshooting, learning your maker's tools. There's a lot of trial and error involved. And we've been there. We've gotten multiple things that have happened to our printers before, and we've tried to figure out what went wrong. Classic case, I mean, exactly what Ken was doing is just kind of finding alternative ways to print things, thinking outside the box a little bit, just to get that like extra smoothness. Could be for any of your other projects, just starting out. Try and think of one classic case where we had an issue and how we problem solved it. But yeah, just inviting anyone to kind of share any kind of failures you've been a part of and like why it failed and how you changed it for the future. Really anything. It could just be a random print that you didn't know that went awry for some reason and you don't know why. That can also be presented and we can talk about it and maybe help troubleshoot. So trying to think of, I mean, mostly our maker issues have just been with the print not printing correctly, a poor print. Someone could just be putting out STL files that don't necessarily like work with our printer, or they just aren't just a great print or as file in general. Could be anything.
I'll throw something out there, and that is I was working with a SLP in, I think it was Phoenix, Arizona. No, it was Albuquerque, and she was having such trouble getting her prints. She was doing key guards again, getting her prints to stick, and found out that she has a 10-year-old MakerBot. Why does she have that? Because they were the guys who offered packages and promised nice service agreements. And anyway, 10-year-old MakerBot. And it's just, I said, the solution to your problem is you have to upgrade to a newer printer, and which is hard for them because they only have a limited number of accepted vendors in there for their purchasing. But you can't solve a problem when the printer is just a piece of junk by modern standards.
Truly, I mean, like within the last like decade or so, we have seen printers, especially in terms of affordability, we're getting down to like 200 levels, dollar entry for like some of the basic starter printers. And so yeah, technology within the last 10 years has just really advanced when it comes to this printer technologies.
When it comes to printers, I would say in the last 2 years, things have hugely advanced. But a lot of these more expensive packages that used to be sold and still are sold to school districts, they are old technology. Even the ones being sold today are 2-year-old technology. I don't know how they make that happen, but they're not fast, they're not reliable, they just happen to be in a really sweet package that Ultimaker or Lulzbot or other companies like that pulled together for districts. But yeah, the unfortunate thing is these folks aren't capable of just aren't able to go out and print or purchase anywhere they want. They can't just go to Amazon and buy anything. They can't buy any. This one person I was dealing with couldn't buy anything if they had to go to a Chinese website to get it. So
There's a
Well, go ahead.
tangentially related, like our smart technology is kind of in not, I don't want to say invading, but it's pretty much like ubiquitous within all of our technologies, home appliances nowadays. And the support for those like smart technologies is growing and growing faster and faster. New products are coming out, and planned obsolescence is becoming more of a thing because the smart technologies aren't being supported by the companies anymore. And I can only imagine that's kind of maybe the case with these older printers as well. It's just the technology is developing too fast, and they need more support for the newer products. Shannon, you're muted.
I was at Texas Workforce, and I'm still amazed at people who had money within an organization, and they rush to spend it on a 3D printer, and they're still not doing the research into why they're buying it. And the organization I was talking to had two that they still have not taken out of a box, and they've had them for 6 months. So that's always my big thing. If you're going to spend that money, you've got to be able to use it. And we do have the Ultimakers, but I've had it since 2018, and with my very first one we bought, they send it out to school districts for 3-week loans, and it's still going strong. So that one was built well. The MakerBot, I've seen and heard a lot of problems with the MakerBot version, which is, I think, now sold by the same company. And I do have a hard time with that one because it's significantly lower quality printing, and you shouldn't be investing in something like that in this day and age. There's too many better devices out there. But you don't know what you don't know, unfortunately.
Well, it's not like back in the day where if you buy something, you buy it for life. It's going to be out the door within the next couple of years if you buy the wrong product.
So one of the things we added a whole new column on the tamales, and it's these 3 articles because, oh, maybe I didn't. Oh, no. I'm sorry. I put it on the other website, my 3D printing. So, which is a part of the tamales. But so we do have these articles in the 3D printing Padlet, because each one of them gives very specific strategies on how to fix these different, oh, look at that, bed adhesion for over extrusion. And it's going from different printers, filaments that are knotted. So if you are having the problems, we thought it would be nice to have some way to look at them and fix them. And I thought that was just a nice little, we did. Actually, Anna came up with the idea, so I'm going to give her credit where credit's due. But there's your errors.
Just comes out looking like Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah. But everybody's got to have their error once in a while. When I first got my printer, they didn't have a stop on when you first got it started, and I got distracted walking the dogs and then a neighbor and forgot about it. And I had like this whole thing of spaghetti. Probably 30 minutes of spaghetti had just been like, which was great to show the kids later. But now the software has a stop, and it'll only go a couple of minutes, and then it automatically stops by itself. So that's dummy proof for me, and that's the kind of stops that or protections I need.
Hey, Shannon, I was watching a video. I can't remember who. This is on YouTube. I can't remember who or what the channel was, but they talked about a new filament. I'll just hold it up here because I was so interested that I actually went out and bought some. This was from Color Fab, is the manufacturer, but it's It's not PLA, it's PHA, and it is completely organic. And so it actually, the certain EU standards, and I assume United States standards, the assumption doesn't go very far. It's completely recyclable. We often like to think about PLA being recyclable since it's cornstarch based, but it has to be highly processed first before there's any chance of it uh, recycling or breaking down within a reasonable time frame, like decades. But this stuff will break down fairly quickly in soil because it's made of organic compounds that you find in soil. And so there are bacteria that have grown up to or evolved to process it. But it's a little, it's like, I can't remember how much I paid for this, like $30 for a 0.75 kilogram roll. But I thought I do so much trial printing to see if something needs to be redesigned. So even when I do this, it's just a piece here to test how something fits. But I do so much of that, I thought, well, I should be printing with something that is completely recyclable, PHA. So you just check it out.
I know there's at least some in the news. There's been some. They've discovered some fungi that loves to eat plastic too, but it probably is not at the rate or speed that we would like. So, um, yeah, always creative solutions out there.
I
I
didn't
also
kind
saw,
of. Oh, sorry, Shannon.
I also saw a company out in the UK won a competition. They were taking fishing nets and transforming them into filament. So, and I think that as time progresses, I think you're going to see more opportunities to, because I can't see why you can't shred it and remake it anyways, because it's, if you haven't used it. But I think you're going to start seeing more consideration for that recycled filament, just because it's just the way that people are heading. They've got to be able to market a one-upmanship on why you would want to buy certain things. And if you've got a durable filament that you can also recycle, I would pay a little extra to get that because I want to be good to the environment. So go ahead, Anna.
I was just gonna say, piggybacking off of that, we did have someone ask, like, what is the preferred filament type that we use? Like, I guess just makers in the group. I don't know if you want to go more in depth with that, Dylan, like your question.
No, I was just wondering if y'all were mostly printing in PLA or another filament, because I started in PLA and I had a lot of problems with it. It just not wasn't very reliable for me.
Does Prusa have a branded PLA?
I
It
think
does, but
so.
you don't need to go to Prusa to get your PLA. Now, PLA is basically PLA. Um, Prusa can promise things like exacting diameter on the filament, that kind of thing, but and really nicely wound rolls, so there's no chance of it being caught on itself. But but other than the exacting nature, I don't think you need to go anywhere else. Go anywhere special for PLA. And I do love PLA because it's easy to print. So that makes me wonder what problems you're having, Dylan, printing PLA, or what problems you're having as far as its suitability for what you're trying to make.
I think the two main problems I ran into commonly was stringing a lot, which w was caused by moisture mostly in the air, absorbing into the filament, and clogging the nozzle. I had the nozzle clog a few times, which was very annoying to go in there and open it up and take it out.
Yeah, you know that both of those could be related to humidity. You may live in a very humid environment. I don't in Denver, but another thing could just be the amount of retraction that you have set in your slicer. So if you're retracting too far, well, then you're pulling um, semi-melted filament up too high into the extruder, which could cause clogging. If you're not retracting enough, you can have stringing, though any filament strings, PLA is on the less end of that. There are other filaments string way more than PLA does. So you've changed to another filament now. What are you doing now that is causing you less problems?
I switched to PETG
Okay.
for most of my prints, and I think it's a much less sensitive to moisture in the air. I mean, I've left it out in the garage for months, and it'll print just fine coming back to it. But I mean, it's about the same price as PLA,
Yeah.
and I haven't had any problems with it.
Okay.
I
Well, I
think,
mean, if you found something that works well for you, go for it.
yeah.
Everybody should be, especially everybody who lives in the Gulf Coast of Texas, should definitely be looking into how do they keep their filaments from getting waterlogged.
Yeah, and everyone.
Especially PVA, it's a snap, crackle, pop. If that gets moisture, all you hear is so.
Yeah. So there are dry boxes and various ways to solve that problem, even ways to dehydrate your filament before you print with it. Again, all I have to do is leave it in ambient environment here in Denver, and it dries too much, actually. You can get very brittle filament as a result.
So hence the containers that are environmentally friendly for your climate, no matter where you are, I guess. The only problem I've had was the PVA. I left that out accidentally, and that was a big mistake. But the desiccant does work, and you can heat it and dry it out a little bit. So that's good to know. I got this really cool container of desiccant, and it changes color, and then you can bake it and reuse it. So it's kind of fun. And then I just put that whole thing inside of a big Ziploc bag and game on. It's kind of like rice, but better. Any other shared problems that anyone's having?
Or any epic fails.
I started to print with wood filament. I was making some Christmas decorations. Oh, my internet's unstable. You probably can't hear me, can you?
No, we can hear you.
Okay. So I was making a nutcracker for my sister. She likes nutcrackers. I want to make her a really big, tall one. If you look for it, it's on Coles 3D, but not so XL nutcracker. Anyways, I was trying to make his hands and his face with that wood filament. I don't know if you can see my eyes rolling or not, but oh my goodness, that was a pain to do. And I bought a bunch of it because I was like, oh, great, it's on sale. Let's do it. It's the last
Yeah,
time I'm going to print with that.
yeah, we've never attempted anything other than plastic. So yeah, can't speak from experience, but yeah, that they get you. They're like, here, buy all this because it's 30% off or it's a holiday deal. And yeah.
I wonder why it was on sale.
Right.
Has anyone else had experience with printing with wood or other materials?
I haven't.
I
What's
printed
the
with
flex?
I printed with glow in the dark filament. That works really well. Glow in the dark PLA, which means it has some additives. It's just you got to be careful because those are abrasive filaments. I believe wood is as well. It's just plastic impregnated with some wood sawdust or something, but they can be very abrasive on brass extruders or brass nozzles. Uh, I don't know if that can also be a problem people experience.
I did scoop up some spools of not metallic, magnetic plastic from a thrift store. Not thrift store, it was an art thrift store. But tried printing with it, it was a no-go completely. It must have been older filament, but yeah, it did not work at all.
Ken, have you printed with, they have a conductive filament so that you can make like and I've got a roll of it, but I haven't opened it yet.
Yeah, so I have printed with, and this was from, who the heck did this? Protopasta at the time. Protopasta was the company that made the only conductive filament. And conductive is, of course, in the eye of the beholder. You're not going to put an electric current through it and power a light bulb. Um, what it has is less resistance than typical plastic. So it probably has some carbon dust in it or something that is doing that. What it works really well for is, what it worked really well for in my case was capacitive styluses.
Yeah, that's
So
where I had a pattern for a
yeah,
stylus.
so anytime you've got I had styluses that had to like turn a corner, so you couldn't just put a bolt in the middle of it, a metal bolt to do that conduction. And this stuff worked like magic. So I'm very big on on conductive filament. If the only thing you're thinking of is capacitance, not an electric circuit.
Yeah, I bought mine for a stylus pattern, and I've not done that yet, but that's the purpose when I get time, when I get around to it. Anyway. All right, an update. Tech Fest Live, we've not really done a lot with it. These are just some pictures, and I put a link on here to show how they've got a magic website. So it's kind of interesting. It actually makes me a little dizzy. But we are going to be doing a presentation with them on January 21st. But we are still at the beginning thinking stages, and we don't have anything. So we'll talk more about that January 13th. And I think any other last minute comments that's about what we have today? Well, we sent out the survey and hopefully we'll get the responses back. So when we come on January 13th, then we'll set a new meeting date, depending on what people vote for, or maybe we'll keep it the same, but we'll let everyone know. And we'll have a new registration starting then, because this one's getting kind of bogged down and some people have dropped out. So we want to make sure we've got an accurate list of the people who are participating. But do continue to read the articles and do the things that we're doing, because that's what it's all about. And welcome to the group, Dylan. Please come back. Got some brilliant minds that come.
Thanks for
I
having
always
me.
learn. All right, I'm going to share the resources again. So the Padlet, here's the QR code. If you have a phone, you want to keep and mark that Padlet because it's always growing. And within that Padlet, I also believe that, of course, I closed it out. No, I also believe I actually put the 3D printing Padlet on there that has all the 3D print patterns under fabrication tools. So you've got a Padlet within a Padlet somewhere. But I got to remember where I put it because there's just so much stuff.
Maybe, Shannon, we just create like a whole nother bar that just is like the Padlet, the other one.
Yeah.
Like a whole new column, sorry.
Yeah. I thought I had it in here. It may and I think I shared this Boulder You Fix It last time. This is in Ken's neck of the woods, but it's really cool because it has all the old repair guides. So that's for all those things that you can't find. I thought this was just amazing. And I think I shared that last time, but do look at some of that because I think it's really cool. Recycling's the way to go. The next one is the shared box link. So go ahead and save that. And that one has some articles that we've put in. I haven't added a lot there, but when I do get closed ones that are not open source, I have to put them there. But there are some articles there as well. But there's so many open source things now. It's pretty amazing. And then finally, everybody gets to see the Mustang again. And it's going to send its way off out of 2025, and we will see everyone in 2026. I can't believe this year's just flown by like these geese. And then there's our contact information and our grant information. I'll go back to the Padlet and any questions we'll wait on for a second, but thank you.